All right, let's talk Travon Walker, a player who I've talked a lot about. So if you don't follow this channel too closely, you know that I was very critical of the Jaguars drafting Travon Walker with the first overall pick. I was not a crazy fan of Walker, but depending on what stats you like to use, you could argue that he had a really good or really bad second year. The first year was definitely a learning experience, even if you're a pro Walker fan, but this next year, he had some good and bad traits. The good, he had double-digit sacks. Okay, you'll certainly take that. What else is there to even talk about? Well, if you look at this list of, these are where every player ranked in terms of pass rush win rate, you see that Walker's not the best. There's about 120 eligible guys, so not a disaster by any means, being at 77th in pass rush win rate, but I mean, you're talking about really rotational edge rushers at this point. You know, guys like Yetur Gross-Matos and Anthony Nelson were ahead of him. Guys like Cleveland Ferrell were pretty close to him. Romeo Okwara also pretty close. So still not where you want it to be, but a significant leg up from last year. I would mention as well, though, if you're a fan of Pro Football Focus grades, which I know not everybody is, those are still not very optimistic for Walker. He did not grade particularly well in his first year, and he was actually even lower graded last year. His numbers went down last year. But I want to get into some film, because again, looking at numbers can only go so far. A lot of times, it does happen where numbers look really bad, but when you watch the film within the context, it looks a lot better. Well, let's talk about it. So first, let's talk about something like this. We're going to be going up one-on-one against a tight end. This is legitimately, he's really good at this stuff. And I want to start off with some positives. He is legitimately great at dominating against tight ends. That kind of sounds like an insult, but I really don't mean it as one. Watch how he is going to be able to quickly get around this tight end, and in the running game, there's not a lot you can do as a running back in this situation. As you see, Walker is able to make the tackle right there. So this is what, when people say, well, Walker's a great run defender, this is usually what they mean, is he's able to do this stuff. He does it really well. Doesn't really do it against offensive linemen. In fact, he usually, he struggles against, he's not a great run defender. I don't know why people will say that, strongly. But he can make the splash plays in the run defense game. I would certainly say that. Going over here, this is part of what the Jaguars have done that I actually think is really smart, is starting to run these stunts where you have an interior defensive lineman kind of try and clear up space and have Walker not just run straight for the tackle, but instead kind of run in between the guard and the center. When this play begins, it's well executed by Jacksonville. And again, for Walker, what's kind of the thing about him? Well, he's this incredible athlete, but kind of struggles sometimes when it comes to hand placement, being able to use the technique to beat tackles, things like that. But here, you don't have to worry about it as much. There's a window. Walker shoots through that window and helps get, I'm assuming he got credit for half a sack on that play. That's a really good play by Travon Walker, and it's something that I think that, he should be utilized doing this stuff more. Again, nowhere during my criticisms of Travon Walker have I ever said that he is an invaluable player, and this stuff is certainly, where his value can really shine through. And we did see some legitimate just splash plays in the pass rush game, right? Stuff like this. Colton McKivitz is the guy he's going to be going up against here, who's, not the biggest disaster you'll ever see, but not great either. Well, but still, a quality player. This isn't like he's going up against some third stringer or anything. Watch how when this play begins, you see right here, Walker's going to do really what he does on basically every snap, is just try and bull rush guys, and it doesn't always work, but when it does, watch him just knock over McKivitz and is able to get a quick pressure right there. I mean, that's really good stuff by Walker. Here's kind of the thing with Travon Walker, is that his highlights are just so awesome. They look so good. The issue is just he's not consistent enough. He isn't. He doesn't do this consistently. And when I watch his film, that's what I see. I think he often gets overvalued. I think he got overvalued in the draft because of how great his splash plays looked. They would stick out in your head, but when you watched on an individual play basis, you noticed it wasn't happening as consistently. The reality is, when I watch Travon Walker film, this is what I see when he's able to get his sacks, they are usually stuff like this, where it's going to be going up one-on-one against Luke Goedeke, a good tackle for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right off the bat, we're going to see Walker kind of do what he does, going for, trying to use his power to overpower Goedeke. Okay, again, that is Walker's best attribute, so I understand why he's trying to do that. However, here it just doesn't really work out at all. Goedeke is able to hold on. Eventually, Walker is going to try and get free, but Baker Mayfield has had time to throw. There's pressure coming elsewhere now. And in fact, Walker is able to get the cleanup sack here, but that is where a good chunk of the sacks came from. It is. When I watched it, that's what I saw. You don't have to apologize for it. Again, this is a good trait to have in a player, having someone who's good at, getting cleanup sacks. Because, well, sure, ideally you would love to play where you get the sack in 2 seconds or whatever. At the end of the day, there are going to be plays that last a while. And having a great athlete who can run over and get the cleanup sack is a very valuable attribute. Like this one's another one where it's 3rd down and 8. You see that, Walker is going up one-on-one against a right tackle here for Carolina. When this play begins, you're going to see that, Walker's getting, towards the outside right here. Not just a pure bull rush. Hey, there we go. This is fun to see. But now in this situation, for Carolina, that tackle, what is he going to try and do? Well, he's going to try and push Walker behind Bryce Young. And in fact, Bryce Young sees this and says, okay, if I move that far to the outside, maybe I can try and scramble outside the pocket. And Carolina pulls this off. They do get Walker towards the outside. However, Bryce Young took way too long to actually throw the football, and because of that, Walker was still able to get a sack right there. So, again, which way do you want to take that? Do you want to say, well, that was definitely kind of a cleanup sack, got a little bit lucky? I think that's reasonable. You could also say, well, he still kind of flushed Bryce Young out and then was able to get back and make the tackle. At the end of the day, what do we make of Travon Walker? I don't know. It's such a unique scenario. It really is, but for me, I'm going to just go with what I usually go with, which is typically when there's a guy like Travon Walker who his splash plays look great, but he doesn't have enough consistency, usually you'd rather have the guy who's consistent. And usually he's going to probably not get as many sacks over the course of a 10-year career as someone who maybe didn't have as many sacks this year, but gets more consistency. But that's certainly not always the case, and you're certainly more than welcome to disagree with me if you believe it. And again, one of the issues with Walker is he's getting talked about as if, like, should he have been drafted 1st overall, which is tough because there's usually going to be a player that's a better player than the guy who was drafted 1st overall. If you're drafted 1st overall, you have to literally be the best in that draft class to live up to the hype. Whereas if you're drafted 10th, it's a lot easier to, be the 10th best player, right? So that's kind of part of the issue. But for Walker, has he shown improvements from year 1 to year 2? I would say so, and that's all you're looking for. So we'll see what he does the following year, but those are kind of my thoughts with Walker. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.